after 10 incredible years together. I never imagined that my wife, Hannah, would ask for an open marriage. We had built a beautiful life together, Hannah thriving in her marketing career, and me steadily working toward my dream of becoming a comic book artist. I always believed our love was strong, intense, and passionate. But one evening, everything changed. When Hannah came home from work, she seemed off. There was something different in her energy. Over dinner, she took a deep breath and said, "Aaron, I've been thinking a lot, and I want an open marriage." My fork clinked against the plate. "What? Why?" I stammered, completely caught off guard. "I miss the excitement of being chased by men," she replied calmly. "Excitement? You want to throw away our marriage for excitement?" I asked, struggling to keep my voice even. "You're not a teenager anymore, Hannah." "Don't be so old-fashioned, Aaron," she said almost dismissively. "I won't be throwing anything away. All I'm asking is for you to accept the idea of me being with other men. You can be with others too if you want." I scoffed. "You're seriously asking me for that? Over excitement?" Hannah went on to explain that she missed feeling wanted and validated, that she craved the freedom to meet other guys, to feel empowered, and to explore a progressive way of living. She tried to convince me that if I truly loved her, I wouldn't feel threatened or insecure about this. "You should trust me," she added. "You should be secure enough to let me do this." I sat there, stunned by her words. Was this really my wife talking? I began, leaning forward and folding my hands together. I've watched a lot of YouTube videos about wives who ask their husbands for open marriages. I kept my tone steady, though inside I was struggling to contain my emotions. In those videos, the wives are usually already involved with someone else or have someone in mind. Hannah's eyes lit up for a brief moment, as if waiting for a confirmation she had been hoping for. I stared at her, making the pause as uncomfortable as I could. "So who is it, Hannah? Who is the other guy?" "No one, Aaron. How could you think that?" she protested. "How dare you even suggest such a thing? Then why are you asking to sleep with other men?" I shot back, frustrated. We went back and forth, her denying involvement with anyone else yet still pushing the idea of an open marriage and trying to sell me on its benefits. Eventually, I had enough. "Look," I said firmly, "my answer is no, and now you've given me a serious reason to consider divorce." I paused, recalling the countless posts and videos I had seen on social media where people shared their experiences with open marriages. In almost every case, when a wife brought up the idea of an open marriage, the consensus was clear: divorce her. I looked at Hannah, my face set with disappointment and disgust. "The moment this comes up, that's it. You should just get divorced." Her face drained of color, and her eyes filled with terror. "Aaron, no. Please, no. We can talk about this. I didn't mean it. I love you, and I don't want to lose you. I was just curious," she pleaded, her voice quivering with desperation. I shook my head. I stood up, grabbed my plate of unfinished food, my appetite completely soured by the toxicity she had brought into our home. I dumped the food in the trash, threw the dirty dishes in the sink, and grabbed my wallet, keys, and jacket before leaving her there, sitting in stunned silence. Over the next few days, Hannah was unusually quiet. It was a stark contrast to the confident, argumentative person who had proposed the open marriage in the first place. Maybe, I thought, my clear stance on the matter, along with the possibility of divorce, had made her reconsider. But that hope was dashed one night, when she walked into the living room, her expression tense. "Aaron, I've been thinking more about this. I've been reading studies on polyamory and open relationships," she said, nodding to herself as though trying to convince herself that this was the right decision, "and I think it would work for us." Then, without waiting for my response, she let it all spill out. "I need to be upfront with you if we're going to move forward," she began, sitting across from me on the couch, her hands tightly clasped in her lap. Her knuckles were white, a clear sign of her nerves. "But please understand, I'm doing this to show you that there's nothing to fear in an open marriage. Nothing to worry about as long as we're honest and open with each other. I know I didn't approach this the right way at first." I shifted uncomfortably, meeting her gaze. "I'm listening," I said quietly, bracing myself for what was coming. She took a deep breath, her chest rising and falling as though preparing herself for a storm. "There's someone at work. His name is Jaden. We've been seeing each other." "Seeing each other?" I repeated slowly, my voice cold and deliberate. "You mean you've been sleeping with him?" She nodded, her eyes quickly darting away from mine. "It's not just physical, Aaron. He makes me feel alive again. Wanted. Like I'm young and active." I stared at her, the woman I had loved for over 10 years, and I realized I didn't recognize her at all. "And you also admit you have feeling for him?" I let out a dark laugh, bitter and hollow. "So this is why you want an open marriage?" I asked, my voice thick with resentment. "To justify your affair?" "No, it's not like that." She quickly defended herself, her tone sharp. "I'm being honest with you. Like I said, I don't want to lose you. I love you, and I thought we could make this work. An open marriage is progressive, Aaron. It's about being open-minded and embracing new experiences. It's not about betrayal." "Progressive?" I spat the word out like it was poison. "You think cheating on me and calling some enlightened lifestyle choice is progressive? That's rich, Hannah, and you know it." Her jaw tightened, her eyes flashing with defiance. "With your refusal to even consider it, you're so set in your ways, so conservative, so close-minded. It's suffocating, Aaron, and yes, I hate it." I stood up, my legs restless. "You hate it? You hate that I valued our marriage? That I believed in the vows we made? That I trusted you? I hate that you're unwilling to grow," she shot back, standing to face me. "Marriage doesn't have to mean locking ourselves into some outdated, oppressive ideal. I want more out of life. Aaron, I want to feel alive, and Jaden gives me that."
I laughed bitterly, the sound empty and harsh. "And what about me, Hannah? What do I get out of this so-called progressive arrangement? The privilege of sitting at home while you sleep with your coworker? Don't think it's lost on me that every argument you made for this open marriage has been about how it benefits you." She flinched, and I could see the guilt flicker across her face. She hadn't even thought about whether or not I might engage with other women in the so-called agreement. Tentatively, she added, "Well, you could see other women too if you wanted. It doesn't have to be one-sided." I laughed bitterly. Such hypocrisy. You suggest an open marriage, but only thought about yourself. And you talk about us, about how this is for us, while I'm left in the dust. I don't want other women, Hannah. I wanted my wife, the woman I thought I married. But it seems she's disappeared. For a moment, her expression softened, a flicker of guilt crossing her face. But then she straightened, squared her shoulders, and lifted her chin. "I won't apologize for wanting more, Aaron. And if you can't handle that, maybe you're right. Maybe this marriage isn't going to work." The weight of her words hung in the air, suffocating.
Undeniable, but strangely, the tension shifted to something else. A feeling of relief, of freedom. I looked at her, the stranger who wore my wife's face, and a wave of sadness and anger washed over me so intensely that it almost overwhelmed me. "You're right," I said quietly, my voice barely above a whisper. "It isn't." I paused before adding, "I'll talk to a lawyer tomorrow, and we'll sort out the divorce." Over the next few weeks, as I moved my things into the guest room, I thought the argument had ended. But Hannah wasn't about to let me go so easily. She enlisted her mother, Iris, her sister, Ashley, and her friends, Haley and Allison. One afternoon, as I sat at the dining room table eating a burger and watching YouTube videos, they stormed in. Iris immediately took charge, gracefully sitting across from me. "Aaron, sweetie, we need to talk about this," she began. I glared at them, setting my food aside and crossing my arms, already dreading the nonsense I was about to hear. Hannah sat next to her mother, while Ashley, Haley, and Allison stood behind them. They looked at me like a panel of judges, and I could feel the tension thickening in the air. This was a coordinated attack. "Aaron," Iris said, her tone soft but firm. "Listen, really listen. Relationships don't have to be rigid and oppressive. Ethical non-monogamy can be empowering for both partners. You need to open your eyes." I raised an eyebrow. "Empowering? Is that what we're calling betrayal now?" Ashley rolled her eyes. "Oh, come on, Aaron. This isn't betrayal. It's about honesty." Hannah was brave enough to tell you what she wants. That takes courage. Do you know how many women just stay silent, letting their resentment grow? Do you really think I should applaud her for having an affair and then trying to pass it off as some kind of progressive philosophy? I met her gaze, my voice calm but icy. Of course she didn't handle it perfectly, Iris admitted, but she's trying to include you in her journey. That's what ethical non-monogamy is about. Honesty, communication, and mutual respect. If you could just get past your control issues and stop being so insecure. My insecurities? I interrupted, my temper flaring. You mean my refusal to let my wife turn our marriage into a circus just so she can feel desirable again? Yeah, I guess I'm insecure about that. That's exactly what we mean, Allison said, leaning forward, rested her hand on the back of Hannah's chair. Her eyes drilled into mine with fierce determination. You're terrified of change. You're clinging to this outdated view of marriage because you're scared you won't measure up to someone like Jaden. It's not a good look, Aaron. Honestly, it's pathetic. My jaw tightened, my fists clenching. I don't give a damn about measuring up to Jaden. I shot back. But you are hiding behind your beliefs, Allison continued, because deep down you know you're inadequate. You know Hannah found someone who can satisfy her better than you can. Hannah shot her a glare, shaking her head and mouthing, "Stop." But it was too late. The damage had already been done. The moment they walked in and tried to corner me, my decision had been made. I laughed, bitter and sour. I don't give a damn anymore. Not about her. Not about him. And I sure as hell don't care about you. I jabbed my finger toward the table with each word. I don't care anymore. I took a breath, my voice steady but firm. I see this marriage for what it is, dead. As for my values, I threw up my hands in frustration. This has everything to do with them. You don't marry someone knowing their stance on something as fundamental as monogamy and then spring a so-called change on them. It goes against everything I stand for. One of them started to speak, but I held up a hand. I don't care what label you all want to slap on this. You can call it whatever you want. But let's be clear, this has to do with trust, too. And Hannah destroyed that trust the moment she decided to sleep with someone else behind my back. For the first time, Hannah, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, finally spoke up. I made a mistake, Aaron, but I'm trying to fix it. I want us to grow together. This could make us stronger if you just stop feeding your fragile ego and being so stubborn. Stronger? I laughed bitterly. You really think bringing other people into our marriage is going to make us stronger? That's delusional. It's not delusional, Ashley snapped. Polyfidelity is a legitimate relationship structure. It's about creating a network of love and support, maintaining sexual and romantic connections within boundaries that both of you agree on. If you just get over your fragile ego, like Hannah said, you could actually learn what it's about. It's not just about sex, Haley added. Let's call it what it is. I shot back. A way to sleep around without facing any consequences. Haley shook her head, exasperated. You're so close-minded. If you just let go of your toxic jealousy, you'd see how liberating this could be. Hannah is offering you honesty. She's trying to build something new with you. But you're too afraid to step out of your comfort zone. Too afraid to be a real man, a progressive man. I'm not afraid, I said. Standing up, I just have standards. I believe in commitment, in loyalty, in honoring the vows we took. I believe in monogamy. If that makes me conservative, fine. I'll wear that label proudly. But don't stand here and tell me I'm wrong for wanting a marriage that isn't a joke. Allison crossed her arms, her tone dripping with disdain. You're so wrapped up in your fragile masculinity that you can't even see this for what it is, a chance to grow, to evolve. You're holding Hannah back because you're too insecure to handle the idea of her being happy with someone else. I narrowed my eyes. Holding her back? I don't care anymore. If she walks out that door and spreads her legs to Jaden or jumps into whoever else's arms, that's on her. She's the one who cheated. She's the one who broke our vows. And now, she's trying to gaslight me. And all of you are helping her. I pointed to the door. Take your nonsense and leave. I had tolerated this long enough. Get out, I said, my voice steady. Hannah's face flushed with frustration. She crossed her arms and leaned back in her chair, eyes narrowing at me. I'm not a... Aaron, stop being so disrespectful just because you're angry. I'm your wife. I cut her off with a dark laugh. Not anymore. She blinked, disbelief washing over her face. I haven't seen any divorce papers yet. Oh, you will, I said. You're impossible, Aaron. You're so set in your ways that you won't even try to see things from another angle. You'd rather throw away everything we've built than make this work. The room grew heavy with silence. One by one, the women glared at me, but they didn't speak again, realizing their attempt to gang up on me had failed. I grabbed my coat and headed for the door. I'll let my lawyer handle the rest. Good luck with your so-called empowerment. You're going to need it. With that, I walked out, leaving them in stunned silence. But despite that final argument, I didn't file for divorce right away. I let Hannah believe I was reconsidering. Let her family, and her friends bombard me with pleas. What they didn't realize, I was stalling because I had hired a private investigator. I wanted proof, concrete evidence that Hannah was already sleeping with Jaden, just in case she tried to backtrack. It took a few weeks, but after the argument about an open marriage, everything unraveled. Hannah was smart enough to avoid sneaking off with Jaden at first, but it was clear she couldn't control her emotions or desires. In the end, she was caught red-handed, and the proof was undeniable. Anger flared up inside me again, but I let it dissipate by focusing on things I enjoyed. Either way, it didn't matter. The woman I had loved, the wife I once had, was gone. The person standing before me now, spouting progressive nonsense while sneaking around with a co-worker, was a stranger, a deceitful, manipulative stranger at that. As soon as I received the investigator's report, I filed for divorce. It was the only way to escape the toxic situation and begin healing. I had to protect myself. A line had been crossed, and there was no going back. Of course, I didn't walk away empty-handed. I might have anonymously sent the report from the private investigator to her company, just to let her know that her actions had consequences. If there's one thing to take away from this, it's that you shouldn't let people pressure you into beliefs that don't align with your values. Stand firm in them, if they're worth standing for. But that's a conversation for another day. I know you all probably hate me by now, but I just wanted to offer some closure. Back then, I honestly didn't think Aaron would go through with it. Sure, he'd talk about divorce, even threaten it, but after that last fight with my mom, my sister, and my friends, he still stuck around. A part of me thought he was bluffing, that eventually he'd cool off and we'd figure out a way to move forward. But when the divorce papers arrived, I could feel it. He was serious. And worse, he wasn't finished with me. 2 weeks after I signed the papers and the process began, I was called into a meeting with HR. Jaden was there too, looking nervous, avoiding my gaze. My heart sank when I saw him. The HR manager's expression was grave as she explained that a complaint had been filed against me, complete with evidence. Photos, videos, timestamps, even text messages. How did they get my texts? Everything was there. Aaron had reported us. It could only have been him. I tried to downplay it, minimize everything. Yes, I even tried to play the victim card, leaning into the idea of sisterhood. I threw Jaden under the bus, claiming he had taken advantage of me. But it was too late. The company had a strict zero-tolerance policy regarding relationships between supervisors and subordinates. The fact that I had never reported anything, while the evidence clearly showed I had willingly participated in the affair, left the HR manager unconvinced. So much for sisterhood. By the end of the week, both Jaden and I were out of a job. I felt ashamed for trying to shift the blame onto him, but losing my career wasn't the worst part. That came later, when Jaden, the man I had risked everything for, told me he couldn't handle the fallout. He said it was over. Betrayal. He started to sound just like Aaron, but at that point, I had to admit he was right. When everything was on the line, I had tried to blame him, to ruin his life. If he had stayed, I would have lost respect for him. I would have seen him as weak, someone I could throw under the bus to save myself. I would have used him as a safety net until I found someone else I deemed worthy of my time. I know you might be surprised that I'm admitting this, but it's the truth. It's what I thought at the time. Either way, Jaden ended things with me face to face, and then disappeared just as quickly as he'd come into my life. In the months that followed, I tried to move on, but nothing seemed to stick. The men I dated were either put off by my baggage or only looking for something casual. No one wanted to build a life with a woman who had burned her marriage and career to the ground in one fell swoop. I was left to confront the cold reality of my choices. Late at night, when loneliness was at its worst, I'd think about Aaron, the life we had built together, and how I had thrown it all away. He wasn't perfect, but he had loved me deeply, completely, and I had let that slip away for what? A fleeting thrill? A fantasy of freedom that had turned into a nightmare? Aaron was moving on now. I heard through mutual friends that he was doing well, focusing on his art, even starting to date again. He deserved happiness, and I had no one to blame but myself for not being part of it. The woman who destroyed our marriage wasn't the real me, but it was too late to undo the damage. I had let something good slip away, and regret would follow me for the rest of my life. The grass isn't always greener. You have to put in the hard work to nurture a marriage. There's no quick fix. If you have a good man at home, keep him. And no, try an open marriage certainly didn't work out for me.